for those of you who I haven't met, I'm Diane Krakora. I'm CEO of a company called PartnerPath. We work with technology companies to help them develop and leverage partnerships. Shocking, I know, since we're in a partnership event. I am your moderator for today. I get to ask the questions instead of answer them. It's very exciting for me not to have to answer the questions. And with me today, I have several of my friends, actually. On the corner is Allison Thomas. She's Senior Manager of Partner Programs at Okta. And then Brian Kroneman. I know.
Just call me BK.
I know, it's hard. They're a client, and there's two Brians at SentinelOne. So there's Brian Lanigan and Brian Kroneman, and we have to call one of them AVP of Worldwide Channel Partner Programs and Strategy at SentinelOne. And my friend Jeff Mattan.
That's Mattan.
I know, I was just correcting you. Senior Director of Worldwide Partner Programs, imagine that, programs, at Palo Alto Networks. New to Palo Alto Networks, used to be at Beyond Trust, right? Yeah. And today we're going to talk about ecosystem-led growth. What is working and what is not? No?
No, I was just
That's not what we're talking about?
talking about BK stuff.
That's not what we're talking about? So the first question is always, what is ecosystem-led growth? If we're going to talk about what's working and what's not. So the ecosystem-led growth really means that your partner ecosystem is contributing to your company's profitability, revenues, some version right now in 2025 that pretty much means revenue. So how are our partnerships really driving business growth? And we just did a study, which I have some data from. It was 150 of you guys, vendors, that were talking about what is important to in them for partner programs. 30% of the respondents said over 50% of their revenues was touched by partners, either sourced, assisted, or fulfilled. Only 30% said that of the respondents said that over 50% of their revenues were touched by partners. That means, for math majors out there, 70% of you said less than 50% of your revenues are touched by partners. So not enough. So we're going to talk about how to increase that. The 80% of the vendors said that they expected partner-sourced, partner-influenced, or partner-assisted revenues to grow in 2025. So we all have the pressure to make ecosystem growth happen. And when we asked what hype, or what we call partner motion, for those of you up here who know that we talk about partner motions, are you expecting to add to your ecosystem? 80% of you said sales. We want selling partners. We want partners that are out there driving revenue. So you're going to hear from our questions today a lot about sales activities in partner systems and ecosystem growth. All right, I have some questions. Brian, you're up first. Before last year, before 2024, was there any question from your executives in SentinelOne that partnering was valuable to your company?
Zero question. Zero. I mean, 0.000 all the way. So just to kind of level set. So I've been with SentinelOne for about 7.5 years. Very, very early on in the journey of this cybersecurity company. And shortly before I joined, we had made the strategic decision to be 100% direct. So that 30%, we've been that way since we were a tiny, tiny company with basically pocket change as revenue. And that has been one of our core strategic differentiators for us in the marketplace. And it started obviously with the classic resale and distribution models, but the reality is that we re-architected our consoles on our infrastructure to actually leverage and speak to the managed service community who needs to use it without us in the room. So
you said 100% direct.
Did I say 100% direct? I meant indirect.
Okay, good.
Good Lord. Thank you for... Clearly, I have not had enough coffee this morning.
I heard indirect.
This is his first partner job ever.
Thank you. Sorry.
There's a long history between these two, you guys.
Indirect.
They have a history together. Let's just leave it at that.
He leaves jobs, I move into them.
Yes.
I get laid off, he refers me.
Yeah. Go way back. Anyway, so it's resale, it's distribution, it's managed service providers, it's using our product to clean up the messes when a breach happens. It's making sure that partners have the ability to drive services around our portfolio. It's integrating. It's da 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 da. The whole ecosystem is important to SentinelOne, and in fact, when we have discussions at the very highest levels of the organization, it's all about how can we use partners more to drive more efficiency within our organization. Period. End of story.
Right, and before last year, I don't think many organizations had a lot of question around was partnering valuable to the organization, but we've seen that change in 2024. And Jeff, we're talking about past metrics before we get into what has changed and what's happening now in 2025. But what were past measures of partner value for you, even at beyond trust? Because I know you've been at Palo for a minute.
Yeah, so I've been at Palo for a month now, a month and a week. But I have a very different experience than Brian. And maybe you all have the same one, and I'll get to the question too. But
okay.
I've never been at a place where there wasn't a healthy dose of professional skepticism to partners.
Me too.
Right?
Yeah.
And I've rarely been at a place that was 100% channel. So there's always the direct versus indirect. And it's always, what are these guys doing for me? And the salespeople always say, I found the deal and did all the work. So you're constantly, and I keep saying, it's been 20 years. I'm having the same conversation about partners. Why do we keep having this conversation? I thought it'd be gone by now. Yeah, I think he's in a great situation and one that we all want because it's partner and you don't have to have that conversation and waste time. Okay, so what we used to measure was more activity-based. Absolutely revenue. There's usually total bookings, right? Then they'd say, let's look at some deal reg stuff. How much MDF are we, utilizing? How much is being accrued? And then how many partners do we have?
Partners, numbers of partners.
Yeah,
always.
these are all good things that we still measure, but they don't really add up to all the questions we're getting now. A lot more of sell.
Sell.
And that's where the skepticism comes in because at Beyond Trust, my last one, I was there for 4 or 5 years, and we found that service delivery partners had a higher propensity to deal reg. So we were trying to push that, but people said, well, they don't do anything, they don't bring revenue because it would be closed by someone else. So there's a lot of things we used to do that they come back. But there are certainly things we're measuring now we couldn't before or we didn't before. So
yeah, we're going to get to those. So Allison, what's changed?
I have also been at companies where you have new hires or dedicated folks from a direct company question whether partners add value. A lot of that is how their commission is set up because they're focused on that particular deal rather than the partnership potential of having more deals. If they use the partner team as their extended sales force, how nice would that be then if you're getting commission on everything they brought to you without having to do the work for it? It's really hard to get someone to see that. I know in the past we always talk about, land, adopt, expand, renew, all of those motions that come around the transaction, like before and after, have always been important. But now I think they're, in 2025, more important than ever. You're really looking at how much a services delivery partner who does a really good implementation allows your customers to adopt faster. So you see less churn, you see upsells at renewal because they had a good experience. You're more likely with someone who does consultancy, like maybe is not ever involved in the transaction. Maybe it's an SI or a GSI. If they're doing advisory services, you're going to see more cross-sell opportunities, more better together sales plays. More things that are hard to measure because they're happening outside of your system, outside of your company.
So we'll stick with you. And so going from what we used to have before 2024, when we started to feel these new pressures, what expectations for partner contribution, let's just call that a general bucket. We'll define partner contribution in a second, but what pressures or what new expectations do you have in 2025 that you might not have had in 2023 and started to feel in 2024?
Actually, I started to feel that pain a while back, but I think it went from measuring revenue, deal reg, conversion rates, enablement, with the assumption that if you're enabled, you're going to do more deal reg and have better conversion rates. That was really the focus. And then you were innovative if you're looking at maybe a renewal rebate or something that just nods at what happens after a sell, right? We've moved so far beyond that. So now it's like, okay, what can we do to understand partner behavior so that we can start devising a system or a process or a policy to really view what's going on and then analyze what the trend is, what's helping, what's working better for one company than another. And then when you have that, that's when you can model an incentive. It's when you can manage an incentive. It's really hard to drive behavior around something you can't see.
Jeff, how about you guys? Like, what is your, can you add to that, like, in terms of what is your, do you have new pressures around ecosystem-led growth?
Absolutely. So I'll call on my last company because we did a lot of stuff around ecosystem, created partner paths, right? Different tracks within the program. There you go. Actually, that's what they call them at
I know.
you know.
It's been a thing.
Expressed here, not necessarily those in management. We had those. We set those up at Beyond Trust because we wanted to measure what were all these different partner types doing. Right, so we had to set up different tracks within the partner program. We had to show NPS for actual partner delivery down to the engineer level. So we did all these really cool things. Now I'm at a very big company, and the skepticism is still there around, are we getting value? And but the good news is, at most of the places I've been in the last 10 years, I was it for partner programs. I have 12 people who work for me now who are partner program people. It's so different in the month that I'm like, what am I doing? So it's very different. And they're all focused on what do we measure? What are we getting out of our partner perks that we give to individuals, right? I'm asking, do these folks perform better in terms of more deal reg, more closed business, higher revenue per person, higher revenue per account? And we're also looking at how do we have these service partners and MSPs, what are they actually doing for us to bring us more revenue? It keeps coming back to that. I feel like I'm not being specific enough. I had some in my head.
We'll get
I'll
there.
think of it for later.
We're gonna get to a little bit more how,
Yeah.
and we can take questions from you guys as well when we get to the why.
Let me just add one thing,
I'm
and I
hoping you're
think
gonna
for us, it's yes, but it's also an education of our sellers about, I think very many people are very single-threaded. Okay, where's my deal coming from? Who's the transacting partner, or partners if you're using a two-tier model? And I think the pressures that we're starting to put on our sellers are now to say, hey, listen, you got to understand, and the data says there may be 7 or 8 different partners in your account. Who are they and what are they doing, right? You may have a service delivery partner that's working with one particular part of the business. You may have another one that's working with a different part. You may have 2 or 3 different transacting partners. You may have an MDR partner that's looking at all the security logs and trying to figure out how to make jumble or a mess look somewhat cohesive. And if you don't know who's in there, you can't actually have a successful account strategy. And so we're constantly trying to pitch and tell our own people, like, listen, you have to ask the questions. And it can't be a question at the very end, who do you buy from? Yeah. Right? Like, that is the worst thing,
you can do.
Right? Like, at the very end of the process, you ask who they buy from, and granted, you might get 3 answers. Maybe one is a strategic partner that knows anything about what you're doing, and they decide to go with whatever the low-cost person may happen to be, who happens to be the brother of the guy who's in the procurement department. And you've just lost this opportunity to actually provide and show value of the partner ecosystem internally. And I think that's the struggle that I've seen this multiple times. And granted, the strategy is different at SentinelOne, but some of these implementation and just like driving the conversation and driving people to think about it more broadly earlier in the sales process.
So to keep on that theme, as we're talking about ecosystem-led growth, what types of partners are you expecting to help drive growth at SentinelOne?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously the transacting partners, but the transacting partners are even more just, you have your marketplaces that kind of play a significant role with our customers, right? So our customers have big EDPs that are out there. They're trying to figure out how to consume them. And resellers and distributors and service providers are all trying to figure out how to leverage that to make the sale go down easier. There are incentives that are in place to help kind of, on our side, incentivize customers to go down that path. The service providers that we work with, I mean, it's all public knowledge, so I'm not going to share anything, this isn't anything crazy, but 30% of our business comes from the managed service path. And that's virtually no touch for us. We sell to the managed service provider and they go to town. And so, we'll bill them on a consumption basis. They do the L1 and L2 support. That is an important line of business and one that we want to continue accelerating because, again, we have a competitive differentiation there. Incident response partners, people who are cleaning up the mess, I think I alluded to that before. Integration partners, working more with OEMs, other ISVs to try and build kind of that.
So across the board.
It's really across the board. It's everything, right? Like I remember seeing a visual from Canalys, I think, earlier this week. And it talked, like at the very center was all the transacting ones. And it was if you looked at it from like 3 different parts of the pillar, the center was the smallest of the 3.
Yeah.
And we're trying to build more and more on the outside with the service partners, with some of the referral partners, the consulting partners, the GSIs. Like that's where I think we see the biggest opportunity over the course of the next 12 months. But it's like it all works together, and we got to figure out how to make it all work together.
Yeah, and I really think that as we're talking about driving growth through the ecosystem, we're starting to look at the 28 touch points through that customer success journey, from awareness all the way through renewal and consumption, all the way through, right? There's 28 touch points, and how many partners and different types of partners are working with your customers through those 28 touch points. And when we're starting to talk about ecosystem-led growth, what are the contributions of your different partner type at each of the 28 stages, or 6 of the 28 stages, right? If you really only can't measure all 28. So back to you guys, Jeff, as you go into Palo Alto, how are you measuring contribution?
So we measure influence. So I'm going to add on a little bit to Brian's, and hopefully this will answer it. And if I get off track again,
I will hit
you're
you.
real close to me. So I have been a professional skeptic my whole career. And when he says these things, I get it. But even within the company, there's so much, and this is the last couple companies, there's so much skepticism around, okay, you say there's 7 entities talking to my customer in the journey, and we all agree to that, right? We see the slide and we say the customer does 60 to 70% of their own buying, research. Our salespeople and our sales management don't believe that those people they're talking to are partners. They are.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's one thing you have to overcome. And it's not specific to this company. I've seen a bunch of companies. The second thing is, I want to see that graphic because I think it's great, because it tells me, like an onion, every time you undo it, there's more stuff. And if the middle is sales, and we're being asked, get more of those, we're being asked to get the wrong things.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? And so trying to educate people that these folks around them are important is tough. What's that?
I was just joking. BK and I just had this conversation on a webinar last week.
All right. I wasn't on that webinar.
Thanks for inviting
You
us
missed
all.
my webinar?
I was working. So
It's recorded.
but for us, like, GSIs are big, massive opportunity. Challenge there, they're big, we're small, but every vendor thinks they're the most important thing in the transaction, right? And that's all that counts, the transaction. Second, MSSPs, right? I've talked to him at length over the last couple of years over MSP programs for different places. I haven't been able to implement a really good one yet because the company doesn't believe that we need to do all these things. because again, it's all about transactions. So MSP is huge for us at Palo Alto, and we're doing some good things. Even in my first month there, I've seen it. That's going to help. And then the folks who actually implement, and after the fact, do your support. That's incredibly helpful. And we have training partners too, who are authorized. So all these folks contribute, and we're being asked to say, how do they contribute to the top line to begin with? And we're trying to show, here's how they keep things going, because layer isn't something that's talked about a lot at companies I've been at. And you have to educate on that. And that's really important, especially in a cloud and SaaS world.
He just used the layer model, which is awareness. Oh, you only okay. You only left. You went with layer. You didn't start with the A. Okay. So,
Just
Allison,
to add,
help us out over here.
let me help you. No, I 100% have seen the same thing. I also see that partners are not just one type anymore. You're seeing them do multiple things. And so if you have separate programs for every flavor of partner, you're screwed. I'm sorry, start over. because it's important to understand they may see themselves in a way that you do not. Right? And if you have something to offer them and you're trying to get them to give you something that you need to have your business grow or grow together, have to have a little bit of flexibility when it comes into your incentives, your criteria for participation, any type of reward that you do.
So how are you measuring partner contribution other than the 30 seconds of the transaction, the button?
So yeah, we do still measure that. It is an important thing, like focusing in front of and beyond after the transaction is important, but you can't miss the transaction, right?
Sales got to happen.
We all have to go home and get paid. But when we measure contribution, we're looking at partner source, meaning like a deal reg or a referral. We're also looking at partner influence, the same way that you are. Are they teamed with someone? Is there a service delivery partner doing the implementation? If you have a GSI doing the advisory services, it's always a challenge to get change heart and minds. I don't think we'll ever stop having the conversation of partners having value, deep value. I don't know how many times I've said, and just raise your hand if you've ever done this, partners have the relationship with the customer. They're familiar with their infrastructure. They are already trusted
advisors.
They're already trusted advisors. Like, you don't want to step in cold to a customer that has a partner who's one of your partners that you haven't talked to. And that happens all the time.
Excellent. You guys have any questions? I have a whole bunch. We can keep going. Any questions from? No, not there yet. Okay, we'll keep going. So other than, let's get into, now that we have why we have to measure partner contribution and what is partner contribution, what are you doing, Jeff, we'll start with you. What are you doing to build an ecosystem that drives contribution either before the transaction, which is the land, the adoption, expand, and renewal? Like, how are you building that ecosystem? Because that's the Alaire model, in case you guys didn't catch that.
So how are we building that? I may ask you to rephrase the question.
What are you doing to build an ecosystem that contributes to growth?
Okay, so the part of it is the different tracks or paths, right? And back to what Allison's saying, you say if you've got different partner programs for everyone, you're screwed. Yes and no. You can make it easy for them if because everyone wants to graduate from being a reseller, right? If you're not, you're never going to make any money because the transactions are getting squeezed and the margins are being squeezed. So make it easy for them to fit into another bucket, count their stuff towards that. I have the luxury of being in a bigger company who's pretty much so number one, right? It's the biggest one, so we can push around. I didn't have that before. So I see things done differently at the company I'm at now than the last one. We were always number 2 or number 3, so we had to, like Avis had to try harder. So I think that's one thing. You have to make sure you have all these different partner types. You have to get agreement internally on what a definition of influence is. That's a big one. And if you can, have your sellers define it and then read it back to them and make sure it's written, it's in your ROEs and all this stuff. So
how do you measure influence?
So measuring influence. So at Beyond Trust, we had if it's one of these 10 things, it's influence. We cut that down to 4. Got CRO approval, rolled it out. What I have now is you do 3 of these 8, it's influence. We're building a process where a partner can actually can register for it, just like a deal reg. And it can be on our deals because we want them to say, hey, did you do these three of these 8 things? Tell us which ones. So it's kind of a proof of performance, like back to MDF.
So 3 out of 8 sales activities, they
Yeah.
had a executive conversation, they set up the demo,
Right.
okay.
And I wish I had
Really tactical.
better questions for adoption. We don't have any incentives on adoption. We also don't have any commission plans or incentives for our own people on that. So that's a challenge. Renewals, same thing. What I'm finding at the last couple companies, we don't even give renewal lists to our partners. So they don't know. So, and then we say, why are the renewals through partners lower than direct? Well, here's why. So we're working on these types of things, and hopefully we'll have incentives, rebates, things there that goes along with the enablement.
Thanks. Brian, 100% indirect. What are you doing to foster growth in the ecosystem that contributes and is recognized contribution to your organization? Not a big question.
Not a big question. I mean, I think it's. I mean, I hear a lot of things that Allison and Jeff have been saying, and it does resonate. You know, yes, it's not all sunshine and roses as much as I want to talk about. Yes, we have some of the foundational stuff pretty good, but like, you know, I was on a call early this morning about, okay, so how do we do the basics with this? Like, okay, well, let's figure that out and get together. Obviously, we don't have it built yet. And so, and one of the core elements is around actually driving services. It's a pretty service heavy type of product. And so like, we need to figure out how to make that work. Our sales teams are just chomping at the bit to try and figure out how to solve this because we don't have the resources internally to solve for it either. And so that's an easy one if we can figure out how to unlock that, but you got to build the foundation to get there, and it's got to be repeatable and scalable and all those good things.
And you did this whole program, integration merge thing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, and I thank you for alluding to that. So it's what you were talking about before, Allison, you know, like the different programs, like we had all these different wonderful ideas, but we were also very siloed. And up until about a year ago, realistically speaking, all the different parts of the organization who were talking to partners were elsewhere. And so we had to bring everyone together under a single leader that made it look like, hey, it's actually an ecosystem. And if it's actually an ecosystem, that means that we can say, you know, it doesn't matter how we define you necessarily based on nouns, right?
Verbs,
nouns.
nouns.
You know, like, what are you actually doing? What are you actually doing for us in the organization? And what are you doing for us on the street? And so we're working our way through and relaunching a program that kind of alludes to that. It makes it a little bit simpler for everyone to understand. Again, I will say it's still, at least this part, I think the foundation is going to be set, but there's going to be a lot of kind of grunt work to try, growing pains. You know, partners are still going to come like, hey, how do we get to this? With their materials that we don't have, we got to create it. Trainings, enablement, da-da-da-da-da.
I'm going to say this.
Never-ending journey.
I'm going to say this in front of 3 global partner programs people. It's the program's the easy part. It's the driving change that's the hard part. It's the processes, the policies, the platforms, it's the putting the tables together around a partner program, which I can tell you because I do it a lot, is the easy part. The hard part is changing the hearts and minds of your sales teams. It's getting executive buy-in to that these are going to be our new metrics. It's that when we're going to measure contribution, we're going to do it both on the front end, the transaction, and on the back end, and on the adoption, renewal, and growth stuff there. So, Allison, you're chomping at the bit over there.
It's like, and to get funding for that.
And to get funding for that. So, Allison, like you talked a little, you started with the kind of the Alaire model and different partner types. What how are you creating that ecosystem, or partner to partner, or different partner types all in one big sauce pot?
I think part of it for me and at Okta is we're working towards letting people be successful in their business goals that are mutually beneficial for my company, rather than saying, you have to do this, or you have to do that, or you have to do that. Like, if you hit all of these categories, all of them are helpful in different ways, and we can teach you how to do it better. We can give you the assistance you need to make strides in the area you're interested in. So it's really around keeping it simple or going back to the basics. Like you said, you love your company, but everyone else might not see you as the great, wonderful place that you are. And if they have to learn 5 different programs on a day-to-day basis, you got to make it easy to remember.
Right. Any questions for programs people before we go into some of the systems and help you figure all this stuff out? Anybody? Got 3 programs people. Yes.
Back to the point that you guys were making about not bucketing, a VAR, MSP, a technology, and workplace. We all know that VARs are doing MSPs kind of stuff. So I'm at a young company who's just getting into this whole partner stuff, and they're building still silos because of the infants, or probably the basic knowledge of people. So we're bringing in more people, more knowledge, and that sort of stuff. I was just looking at SentinelOne because we do a lot of work with you guys too, that you guys kind of have category groups, so it doesn't bucket you into a partner type of VAR, MSP, and that. Can you kind of give a little bit more strategy behind that?
I'll repeat that in case you guys didn't hear it. It was a question about going from silos, from what we call nouns, an ISV, a reseller, a systems integrator, to the idea of a verb. Are they influencing? Are they servicing? Are they building, like that? And how did you make that shift, at least internally? Because I know you're still haven't rolled it out yet.
Let me kind of answer it this way. I think for us, based on the customer feedback that we were getting, what you're trying to do is figure out, at the end of the day, the customer's going to make a buying decision about whether they want to own the license or whether they want someone else to own the license and manage it for them. Do they have the ability and the capabilities to run the stack internally, or do they need some help? And, obviously in the security space, like, it's freaking complicated. Like, all these different tools, firing off all these different alerts, trying to figure out how to make sense of all of that. And, like, we know that in our world, like, the manage part can be solved by the same partner that does the sell. And so, like, this whole blurring of the definition that goes between the sell and the manage, or the resell, or the VAR and the MSSP, like, it sometimes it doesn't, like, it's one and the same partner at the end of the day. And so what we want to figure out is, what are you doing? Like, are you capable of performing these kinds of services? And so, yeah, we know that the selling part is the lowest bar that you can get to do anything in the partner world. But we've got to also understand, like, do you have some capabilities? How many agents do you have under management? What does your portfolio look like? Do you have, like, an established business? Do you have a support team? Do you have deployment engineers, customer success? And so we help to try and guide the conversation so we can route the partners to the right teams who are the SMEs of that. We're still trying to make everyone and cross-train them as much as possible, but the reality is like, we still have some silos in the organization who know how to speak to the value prop of an MSP differently than they would for just a regular partner that's driving a transaction. But as we are trying to mask that a little bit externally, and I think you're gonna see that if you follow it, you're gonna see that unmasking happen a little bit more, just because we're trying to acknowledge the fact that, like, you're a transacting partner that may look like this today and like that tomorrow. And, like, that blurring of the lines, we want to acknowledge that and understand, like, you're important to us regardless of what activity you're actually doing.
And even deal to deal on the same day.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Right. They may transact one deal, and the same day, they may decide they may only be a referral because they don't have the depth of relationship in that customer.
Now, I will say that this makes our sellers very uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable. Awkward. All right. So yes, go ahead. No, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, could you maybe speak a little bit about sort of certifications and education and where you are on that journey and how it
Yeah, Allison, why don't you start with like certification programs?
Good times. I've been at a couple of different companies over the course of my career, and there's a point in the kind of maturity of the company where you look at either a specialization or a competency as like a goal that you have for the people that you work with. For me now, what I'm seeing more and more of is folks are more interested in bite-sized training about the thing that they need to know, especially if it's at the time where they're about to have to do it, rather than to take a prep course for 20 hours and sit at a certification exam that's proctored. You can still do all those things. I think that has value, but it's the down and dirty element of training that's really effective for me. When it comes to the conversations that I'm sure you're having, if you reposition it in the terms of your audience and what they want to hear, what they care about, then you can start thinking about, if I were them, what would I need? Like, and if I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it, what do I have to have? Yeah.
So let's shift and talk a little bit about automation.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, we are at an automation.
I don't want to.
We are sitting in
don't
a
wanna
partners
talk.
meeting, so I thought we'd talk about automation and how automation is helping.
That's coming.
Okay.
So I agree. There's a couple things. There's a balance between what's practical and what's necessary. Certifications are easy to say. They have this many. They did this, but the practical hands-on after to show that they actually learned something that's valuable to a customer, that's more prevalent now. I think it's really good. I think the places I've been have really pulled out any technical stuff out of the sales. Right? They're not going to have to be an admin. They're not going to have to do support. That's what they choose not. If they want to, they can take that, but it's not a requirement in the program anymore. But making sure that it actually fits the value the customer needs is important. Hard part is it takes a long time to build training, certifications. They don't always get the updates from the product team when the products are coming out, so they're 9 months behind. So it's important to have. You absolutely need it if you're going to have an authorized support center. Right? But I think what's really important is after it, have practical where someone demonstrates they learned to do the thing that's important to a customer. So,
BK, you want to throw in, or you good?
I echo that. I would just use for us, it's actually the difference between accreditations and certifications. So just that like slightly nuanced take. Certification meaning you have to have a proctor and say like, yes, I certify that this person can do what it is that I've trained them to do. Accreditations is probably a little bit closer to what Allison is talking about, right? Where yes, there's some self-paced on-demand work that gets you the quick and dirty, like here's how you navigate and here's how you find this stuff. I would say similarly, like one of the things that we're looking at is trying to make the demonstration process even more consumable to a neophyte with SentinelOne. We have tools that are available to say, hey, listen, you can actually do a pre-canned demo where you control the clicks yourself that makes it look like you're in the console, but it's actually managed by us. So like you literally don't have to learn anything except for follow this script, do this, and tell us which customer you're talking to. Like there's ways to try and make, and then if you want as a partner to go even further down the path and be able to drive a proof of concept or deliver these integrations or manage or support, like we have those pathways. And of course, everything that Jeff was mentioning about making sure that those are up to date is always a challenge, but like trying to cover as broad a base as quickly as possible is like probably our main job as in the programs and enablement group.
I would just add there's a balance between convincing your corporation to give partners the same training at the same time as your internal teams and realizing that your partners do different things than your internal teams. So speed is beneficial even if it's not perfect. Taking them with you on the journey, I would say proof of performance, really. It means a lot, even if it's like a new product or a new capability and your internal professional services teams are still figuring out, having a beta partner join you, having them job shadow, or if it's their area of expertise with multiple systems, connecting folks so that they build trust so you can do it together rather than being in competition.
So, Allison, let's stay with you, and let's talk a little bit about we're driving ecosystem growth, and we're talking about proving partner contribution. So, and we're sitting here thanks to InPartner, yay, and we know you're all InPartner customers. How how do you use systems or automation to help you either enable or track or manage this ecosystem growth or contribution elements?
I would say all of the above, right? You need an effective system so you can understand behavior, so you can incent behavior.
Are you tracking to the behavior level?
We are. Whether we're doing it well is a whole nother question, right? It's kind of a newer thing. The different partner roles that can be occurring around a particular customer at different times. But we do have some things in trials, right? When it comes to systems, I am a big fan of partner systems. I love it. Just a little background about me. I worked at Symantec for a really long time. Then we did the lift, the shift, the rebuild when I went with the Veritas side when the company separated, which means all new systems. And then Veritas changed their CRM from Salesforce to Oracle, which means all of the same rebuilding, redesign. What have you learned? What will you try this time? And then now I'm at another company back to Salesforce. But it's one of those things where you've seen it work well and you've seen it not work at all. So if you have the easy things covered, like if partners can see analytics about how they're doing and the value your program brings to them, that could be deal reg, that could be MDF, that could be referrals, that could be partner leads that we have given them versus them giving us. All of those things will make it easy for you to have impactful conversations and QBRs, and really to make a business case for your internal executive team why they should allocate more budget to partners, to partner enablement, to partner growth, and to partner programs.
Brian, how are you using automation?
I mean,
How?
Yeah, how? Yeah. So first of all, like I'm 100% with you. I believe in systems and tools and processes, and even from a very early stage, like we were trying to drive as much of that as possible.
Well, you kind of, I mean, especially today in 2025, you need systems to be able to prove value, because no longer do our executives just trust that partnering is valuable.
Yeah.
We have to actually prove it.
Completely.
We need data.
Completely. I mean, it's all those different things. It's revenue, it's MDF, it's incentives, it's certifications, accreditations, it's activity, behaviors, influence, all of that and the above. One thing that I think is interesting about, you make the decision to say, hey, listen, we want to have data and we want to show the data on a QBR to a partner and understand what's important. But what I love internally is being able to say, hey, listen, we just purchased this thing and we need to clean up our own systems because our data is crap. Right? Like this doesn't work for one reason or another. And so we need to fix it so that it's actually usable for our partners and our partner managers and our executives to show like, hey, you had all these different pathways and these data points that were hidden in your CRM somehow. Like, let's actually elevate it and say, hey, you want to know what value is? Here it is. So like, and from our vantage point, like you got to stay like one step ahead and have those conversations, understand like, where are people talking about? Like, what is the next thing that people care about? Are we ready to have that conversation? And if not, what do we need to do to get there?
Well, and on top of that, it needs to be self-service as much as possible. Everyone has smaller staffs this time around. You have a smaller number of managed partners if you're anything like me. So it really comes into what can you give like the small but mighty rest of your partners to help them keep moving that growth. Because if you only focus in on your top 20%, you start losing the run rate business. You start seeing transactions decline because you're too focused on other things. Those are risks that you have. Whether it occurs in your environment or not is a whole different story. But I'm with you on the data, especially. Like I've seen some really funky things happen in internal systems. And if you can take the time to clean things up, especially when it comes to contact information, communications information, you can reach more people with the messaging that your company feels is important. Yeah.
I want to add, because I think this is really complicated. And what I mean is data's one, How many of you have more than enough IT resources just waiting for them sitting to do work, right? That's number 2. Yeah. And the third one is it's across multiple systems.
Yeah.
You've got to integrate them. So when I was at Beyond Trust, we used Gainsight. We had ImPartner. We had Power BI. Of course, there's Salesforce in there. We had some LMS, I can't remember the name of it, Docebo or something else. But all these things required us to put together a BRD, which at that company, no one had seen a BRD before, right? And so there was
Business
no
requirement document, in
right.
case
And
you
so
don't know what a BRD
I
is.
hate writing those, but they're super helpful. So we did that, and then we were able to bring together things like, can we show, like we were showing partner NPS, right? Which we didn't do. And again, we went down to the engineer level. And then we also integrated that within Partner, so the surveys could be sent out by a partner person based on the customer they just implemented on, right? Then you had Power BI, which was something that would pull from Salesforce and other places to prove to internal people that partners did stuff. Because you had influence, and you had the deal registration, you had renewal rates, all that fun stuff. In Salesforce, we did custom work. We built the table for partner involvement that got down to, like, we're going to use nouns, which partner did this, right? What kind, and then what type of influence, and a salesperson had to sign off on it. Now, again, it was really hard because it wasn't a requirement, so you had to keep constantly building and going to talk to salespeople about, this is why you should do this is why it's important for you, this is how you'll make more money. Then there's just all kinds of other stuff around, like just a complicating factor that's not in the wheelhouse of systems and how we automate, but if you want to drive more growth through services partners, but your sellers don't get paid on partner services, guess what? They're selling your services because they don't get any commission. So it's really hard to overcome that. So.
Right. So not only is there systems, but there's processes and policies, and we have there's always a debate, which comes first, the chicken or the egg, what comes first, the systems or the process, or the partner programs. And you can't automate bad processes. So fix your data.
Oh, you can.
Okay, you shouldn't automate bad processes. You fix your data and fix your processes before you go automate those pretty crappy processes.
But in all seriousness, a lot of people that I've worked with jump directly to system controls.
Oh, yeah.
To drive behavior. And there's a whole range of other options before then that don't take that precious time from your technical resources to do something more impactful. So I always push back a little bit when that comes my way, just to say it's a business process, it's a people problem versus a system problem. So if you want to automate something to do a certain thing, let's try that in a manual way and see what happens. Does it really solve the problem you were trying to solve?
Because automating bad processes means that it's still a bad experience for the partner. And we say that experience drives engagement, and engagement drives sales, which is why we're all here anyway, is to get that sales. So, last parting shots. Any parting piece of advice from each of you around how to increase partner contribution, right? Because we're in the topic of ecosystem-led growth. How do we increase our growth through the ecosystem so that we're not just proving that we have more? I'm stalling, Brian. Not that we're just proving that we have more contribution from our partners, but that we're actually increasing contribution. Jeff, you'll go first because Brian's still looking at the ceiling. Yeah. Are the answers up there?
They are.
Okay.
They're not. So to me, there's a couple things here. Enable the crap out of partners. Make as much available as you have to them. Right. Second thing for me is this is a do as I say, not as I do, because it's really hard to do. But instead of salespeople and executives and us getting away with hey, partners are an extension of us, flip that. How would you do things differently if you were an extension of a partner? Because that's really what we're doing to a customer. And the third thing is I think there's just, to drive growth, you got to let more in the tent. To Allison's point, you got to customize to them, to what they want to do. And I think, Brian was talking about what they do for us, but also what they do for the customer. But these are really hard things to do because it's really easy to bucket and have categories and stuff. So as much as you can customize and make those categories flexible to help partners, because make it easy for them, the experience will be good. I think that's what you were alluding to, Diane. And they'll just come back and do more for you because they want to make money too. And it's really easy. The easy part is what they want. Are you easy to do business with? It's hard to do that, but it's easy to say.
BK?
Yeah, I mean, I think from our world, or from what I see, it starts with simplicity.
Oh, it's so easy to be easy.
No, but it's not. It's
not.
so hard to be simple.
It is.
Right? And I say that simple not just in how you're communicating with the partners, but how you're also communicating with your internal sellers. Like, how is it, like, show, like, this is the deal. This is how you're going to get compensated. This is what the involvement is, and this is why a partner is important to you. Maybe they shorten the procurement cycle. Maybe they shorten the implementation cycle. Maybe they
Make a happy customer.
make a happy customer. But like, again, keep it as simple as possible, right? Like, I think we can all understand, like, okay, so this partner's over here is special. This one's over here is special for a different reason, and like, and you lose your sellers. And so as much as possible to try and use that adage of saying, like, hey, listen, let's cover the 80% of use cases by defining as simply as possible, excuse me. And then using those systems and those processes to kind of reinforce that message. You know, if you're saying, like, hey, this is what we're going to measure and this is how we're going to measure it, this is what we're telling our sellers is important, making it so that they can then come back in and say, hey, we all agreed upon this. So, like, this is how we're measuring your partners. This is how we're measuring you. This is how we're measuring the partner teams. And so, you know, and then ultimately there is a little bit of a leap of faith to say that that's all going to lead to partner contribution. But I think that by showing the pathway for people to see the value in the partners, that actually leads to the trust to allow people to let go a little bit. And I think that, you know, some of the things that we talked about in general is, like, I think sellers, whether you're on the technical side or whether you're on just the regular account management side, they don't want to let go. They want to control their deal from end to end. And I get it. Trust me, I get it. Like, you want to feel like you have control so that you're in control of your own destiny. But sometimes you need to raise a hand and say, I need help. And to know how to do that and when to do that and why to do that and who to go to outside of your own organization, if they know that that's someone that they can call upon and there's a pathway to success there, that helps the next deal and the next deal and the next deal after that.
Allison?
I would echo absolutely the points that you guys have brought up. I've seen it be more successful when you define, like you're saying, you define who is doing what with different capabilities at different stages, so they can see in a simple way at a high level how different things could help them close the deal, make the commission, go home happy, whatever it is. But I've also seen it be more successful if you go on top of that and do celebrate the wins along the way. Like, have a practical example they're familiar with and help them see where the partner played a pivotal role in doing what they're doing, and help them see what they might not have seen because they're so focused in the field on getting the deal done that the partner account manager is like, hey, did you know they were with that customer for the last 2 years and they recommended us as part of their advisory council, and really that's why they even picked up the phone when you called them. Those types of things really help spread the vision of collaboration. It's really difficult to change hearts and minds, but I think it's absolutely necessary in this business. Yeah.
And I think there's two pieces of that. One, certainly, partnering is personal. Partnerships are between people, not organizations, right? It's not that SentinelOne is partnering with a WWI or, you know, WWT or anything. There's relationships that happen between two people that make that partnership work. So understand the person and what those people want from their own, as Allison, you put it, do they want to go home early? Do they want a new career job? Like, and then also the organizations of those partnerships are also unique. So understand their business model. What do those partners want as a business model? They're not all the same. They're not all apples or oranges or bananas, right? Each of these partners, organizations, have a business model and probably a pretty unique business model. What makes them get up in the morning? And how do you then attune your programs and then your systems and your internal teams, to BK's point, like to understand that that organization may help you out? Thank you. Thanks, Allison. BK, always a pleasure to see you again. And Jeff, it's been a while. Thank you, guys.